She sat at the wrong table, on her blind date, and the man who looked up from his phone was not the one she was supposed to meet, but the one who would change her life forever. The Millionaire CEO married his secretary in a contract deal, but she did what no one ever dared. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell me where you are watching from. Now, let us get back to our main character. The soft hum of conversation filled the elegant Manhattan restaurant. Warm light spilled over polished silverware and glasses that sparkled like tiny stars. Every table seemed to host someone confident, successful, perfectly dressed. At the door stood Maya Collins, clutching her phone and trying to calm the storm in her chest. Her reflection in the window reminded her exactly who she was, 26, a waitress from Queens wearing a secondhand navy dress and shoes that had lost their shine. Still, she had promised her roommate, Lily, that she would go through with this blind date. Table 9, she whispered to herself, scanning the room. Her palms were damp. Then, she saw him alone near the back. Dark hair neatly styled, suit tailored like it belonged in a magazine. He looked like the kind of man who ordered expensive wine without checking the price. Maya took a breath. "You can do this," she told herself, and walked toward him. "Hi," she said with a nervous smile, sliding into the seat across from him. "You must be Brandon. I'm Maya." The man blinked, clearly startled. For a heartbeat, he seemed ready to correct her, but something in her eyes stopped him. His phone buzzed on the table, a text canceling his next meeting. He set it down slowly. "Yes," he said after a pause, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Brandon, nice to meet you." Maya laughed softly, relief flooding through her. "Blind dates are weird, right? Lily warned me you might be quiet, so I am prepared to talk enough for both of us." He leaned back, watching her with quiet curiosity. "That sounds fair," he said. As the waiter poured water, Maya kept the conversation going. "So, what do you do?" "I work in technology," he replied simply. "Like apps and coding?" she asked, brightening. "That is amazing. I can barely fix my phone when it freezes." He chuckled, the sound low and unguarded. "Something like that." She talked about the diner where she worked, double shifts, about her dream of opening a small art studio someday. He listened, really listened, as if every word mattered. It was strange. People usually looked past her, but this man's attention felt steady and calm. "You are not what I expected," Maya said after a moment. He tilted his head. "And what did you expect?" "Someone I do not know, more serious? You are easy to talk to." He smiled, eyes softening. "You are easy to listen to." For a while, the world outside the window blurred into gold and gray. Then her phone buzzed again. She glanced down at the screen and froze. "Hey, Maya. I am at table 9. Looking forward to meeting you. Brandon." Her stomach dropped. Slowly, she looked up at the man across from her. "You are not Brandon, are you?" she whispered. His smile faltered. "No," he admitted gently. Color drained from her face. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." She grabbed her purse, mortified. "I cannot believe I just—" "Maya, wait," he began, standing, but she was already moving, nearly tripping over the chair. Outside, the wind cut sharp against her cheeks. She hurried down the block, face burning, replaying every word she had said. Inside the restaurant, the man watched through the window, the faint trace of her laughter still echoing in his mind. He did not know why he let her walk away, but for the first time in years, he wanted to see someone again, not because he should, but because he wanted to. Across town, the city glowed under a soft drizzle that blurred the traffic lights into streaks of red and gold. In a quiet apartment above a laundromat, Maya Collins sat on her small couch, face buried in a pillow. The sound of her own voice still echoed in her head, every awkward sentence, every wrong assumption. Her roommate Lily peeked over the edge of her laptop. "That bad?" Maya groaned. "Worse. I sat at the wrong table, talked for half an hour, thought he was my date. He was not." Lily tried not to laugh. "Please tell me he was at least nice." "He was," Maya admitted, lifting her head. "Too nice. And that just makes it worse. He even listened when I complained about rent." "So maybe it was fate." Lily teased. Maya rolled her eyes. Fate would not humiliate me in front of a stranger in a three-piece suit. The two laughed, but as the sound faded, Maya's smile dimmed. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Her uniform hung on the door, smelling faintly of coffee and grease. She had to be up by 6 to open the diner. Outside, the rain deepened, tapping against the window like a quiet rhythm. Somewhere across the city, in a penthouse high above the noise, Ethan Ward stood by the glass, staring down at the glowing skyline. He could still hear her laugh, unpolished, honest, nothing like the practiced smiles he met every day. He had intended to correct her right away. But something about the way she spoke, earnest, nervous, completely herself, had felt like a breath of air in a room that had been closed too long. In his world of calculated conversations and empty praise, her sincerity was a rarity. Ethan's assistant, Clara, walked in holding a tablet. "Tomorrow's schedule, sir. I moved the investor call to 11. He nodded absently. Clara hesitated. "You have been quiet since dinner. Did something happen?" Ethan glanced out the window. "Nothing important," he said, but the words felt untrue even as he spoke them. Down in Queens, Maya lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed his faint smile, the kindness in his eyes, the way he had said, "You are," easy to listen to. It was ridiculous. She did not even know his name. Still, her heart refused to quiet down. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds, pale and early. The diner smelled of coffee and pancakes. Maya moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates and refilling mugs. Life returned to its routine tips in a jar, bills on the counter, and dreams folded between shifts. But as the morning crowd thinned, the bell over the door chimed softly. Maya looked up. A man in a dark gray suit stood there, scanning the room. For a second, her heart stopped. The resemblance hit her like a wave, the same posture, the same calm expression. Then the man spoke to another customer, and she realized it was not him. She let out a shaky laugh, embarrassed by her own hope. "Get it together, Collins," she muttered, sliding another plate onto the counter. By afternoon, the rush was over. She leaned against the register, sketching in the corner of an old notebook a habit from childhood. The page bloomed with lines of light and city rooftops. Her hands moved almost without thought. Lily dropped by, tossing her a small paper bag. "Dinner for later. And hey, next time, maybe do not run away so fast. Maybe he wanted to see you again." Maya smiled faintly. "If he did, he knows where to find me." Far above, in his office overlooking the Hudson, Ethan opened his email but could not focus. A quick search of the restaurant's reservation list flashed through his mind. He wondered if he should ask the manager who had been sitting at table 7 that night. He closed the thought almost immediately. CEOs did not chase strangers they met by accident. Yet as the evening shadows stretched across the city, he found himself standing by the window again, holding a coffee he had not touched. Somewhere out there, the girl with the nervous smile and the secondhand dress was probably ending another long shift. He should have asked her name. He would not forget her face. The following week moved slowly, one long blur of gray mornings and coffee-scented afternoons. Maya Collins kept her head down at the diner, focusing on orders and tips, trying not to think about the stranger with the calm voice and gentle eyes. But his memory followed her like the scent of rain on pavement, quiet, persistent, impossible to shake. On Wednesday afternoon, as she was clearing a table, her manager waved her over. "Maya, someone from Ward Enterprises just called. They are hosting a charity luncheon downtown and need extra staff. Double pay for the day. You interested?" She blinked. "Ward Enterprises? Like the tech company?" "Exactly. You are one of my best. I told them you would be there." The next morning, she put on the crisp white uniform provided by the catering service. Her nerves returned the moment she stepped into the glass-walled ballroom. Everything gleamed, silver trays, crystal lights, polished marble. Guests in tailored suits drifted through the space, laughing softly. Maya kept her eyes on her tray, balancing glasses of sparkling water. She moved past clusters of guests, careful, invisible. Then she froze. Across the room, near the stage, stood Ethan Ward. He looked different in daylight, less distant, more human somehow, but still impossibly composed. For a second, the noise around her dimmed. He turned, almost as if he felt her stare, and their eyes met. The shock hit both of them at once. Maya's heart jumped. She quickly looked away and stepped behind a floral arrangement, whispering to herself, "No, no, no, not here." Ethan blinked, trying to make sense of the sight. It could not be. Yet there she was, the same woman who had sat across from him days ago, holding her breath and calling him by the wrong name. He remembered every detail, right down to the tiny silver charm on her bracelet. Before he could move toward her, one of the event coordinators stopped him with a question about the presentation. By the time he turned back, she was gone. Maya slipped into the hallway, pressing a hand to her chest. "Why does this keep happening?" she whispered. She had come here to work, not to make a fool of herself twice in front of the same man. The rest of the luncheon passed in a blur. She focused on her job, pretending not to see him again. But as guests began to leave, she carried a tray past the main doors, and his voice stopped her. Maya Collins. Her name spoken like a memory. She turned slowly. He was standing there, no longer the distant CEO, but a man genuinely surprised and strangely relieved. "You remembered my name?" she asked softly. He smiled. "I never forgot." She hesitated, unsure whether to run or laugh. "I thought you were someone else that night. I am still mortified." "You made an honest mistake," Ethan said gently. "And for what it is worth, it was the best dinner I have had in a long time." Her cheeks flushed. "You are being kind. I am being honest." A silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of the emptying ballroom. "Why are you working here?" he asked finally. "It is a temporary job," she said. "I needed the money. My mom is in the hospital, and—" She stopped, realizing she was saying too much. His expression changed, less curiosity, more concern. "Is she doing better?" Maya nodded faintly. "Some days are good." He seemed about to speak again, but an assistant called his name from across the room. The moment broke. "It was good to see you again," she said quickly. Ethan hesitated, then extended a small business card. "If you ever need a change of pace, call me. I am serious." She looked at the card but did not take it. "You do not have to do that." "I know," he said, "but I want to." Before she could respond, someone else stepped in to speak with him. She slipped away into the service corridor, clutching the tray to her chest. Outside, as she waited for the bus, the city lights shimmered on the wet pavement. In her pocket, she found the card he had quietly placed there while she was distracted. Ethan Ward, CEO, Ward Enterprises. She stared at the name until the letters blurred. The man she had mistaken for a date was not just some stranger. He was one of the most powerful men in the city. The bus arrived, brakes hissing. She stepped on, heart pounding, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Somewhere behind her, in the glow of the glass tower, Ethan Ward watched the city below and wondered if fate had just handed him a second chance. That night, Maya Collins sat by the small window of her apartment, the city lights flickering like restless thoughts. The business card lay on the table beside a half-finished cup of tea. She must have read the name 100 times. Ethan Ward, CEO, Ward Enterprises. Every time her eyes landed on it, her stomach twisted tighter. Lily came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "You have been staring at that thing for an hour," she said. "Are you going to call him or set it on fire?" Maya sighed. "Neither. It was just a polite gesture. People like him do not actually expect you to call." "You mean people like billionaires?" Lily teased. "You literally had dinner with one." "It was an accident," Maya said quickly, "and it will stay that way." But the truth was not so simple. The memory of Ethan's voice, calm, grounded, kind, kept echoing in her head. He had looked at her like she was not invisible, like she was not just another waitress passing through his day. By morning, she had convinced herself to forget him. She placed the card in a drawer and headed to work. The diner buzzed with its usual rhythm, the hiss of the coffee machine, the jingle of the doorbell, the clatter of plates. It felt safe here, ordinary. Around noon, the bell rang again. Maya turned, balancing a tray, and froze. Standing at the entrance was Ethan Ward, in a simple navy coat instead of a suit. The entire diner seemed to fall silent. He smiled faintly. "I hope this is not a bad time." Maya blinked, speechless. "You, here?" "I was nearby," he said lightly. "Thought I would try the famous pancakes you told me about." She could barely find her voice. "You remembered that?" "I remember most things," he said, taking a seat by the window. "Especially the things that make me smile." She swallowed her nerves and brought over a coffee pot. "Black, right?" He raised an eyebrow. "Impressive memory. I take orders for a living," she replied, pouring carefully, though her hands trembled slightly. As the minutes passed, the initial shock softened into something easier. They talked about the diner, about art, about how he used to draw blueprints of cities when he was a kid. For the first time, he sounded less like a CEO and more like a person who had forgotten how to rest. Lily, watching from the counter, mouthed silently, "He came for you." When Maya returned with his check, Ethan stood. "You should not be waiting tables forever," he said quietly. "You have talent, Maya. You see the world differently." She smiled but shook her head. "Dreams do not pay hospital bills." He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe not yet." As he left, he placed something on the table, a folded napkin with a single line written in clean, deliberate handwriting. "There is an opening at Ward Foundation. Art Outreach Coordinator. Call if you want it." Maya stared at the note as if it might vanish. The doorbell chimed as he stepped out into the street. She ran after him, stopping on the sidewalk. "Ethan, wait!" He turned, rain beginning to fall in soft drops between them. "I cannot accept charity," she said. "It is not charity," he replied. "It is a chance." She hesitated, raindrops catching in her hair. "Why me?" "Because you remind me what it means to care about something real," he said simply. She stood there, speechless, watching as he walked toward a black car waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door, but before Ethan stepped inside, he glanced back once more. Their eyes met across the rain-slick street. That night, Maya unfolded the napkin again and again until the ink began to smudge. The words Art Outreach Coordinator burned in her mind. By dawn, she made her decision. She pulled out her sketchbook, the same one she had carried since high school, and packed it carefully into her tote bag. At 10 o'clock sharp, she walked into the glass tower of Ward Enterprises. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile. "Do you have an appointment?" Maya took a breath, holding the note tightly. "Tell Mr. Ward that Maya Collins would like to take that chance." "And somewhere upstairs?" Ethan Ward smiled at the sound of her name. The elevator doors opened to a floor filled with soft light and quiet energy. Maya Collins stepped out, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. Her reflection in the glass wall looked out of place among the suits and polished shoes, but her heart was steady. She had chosen to be here. At the end of the hallway stood Ethan Ward, leaning against the frame of his office door. "You came," he said, his voice low but unmistakably pleased. Maya nodded. "You offered me a chance. I decided to take it," he smiled. "Then, let us make something meaningful." Over the next few weeks, Maya learned what that truly meant. The Ward Foundation was not just a branch of his company. It funded art programs for underprivileged schools and community centers. Ethan gave her full creative freedom to design workshops and exhibitions. It was exhausting work, but for the first time in years, Maya felt alive. Every morning, she passed the glass doors with the same quiet awe. Every evening, she left with paint on her hands and ideas buzzing in her head. And every time she caught Ethan watching from his office window, there was something unspoken in his gaze, pride, maybe, or something warmer that neither of them dared to name. One Friday evening, the team gathered for a small celebration. Their first outreach project had been approved for city funding. The air in the conference room was bright with laughter and the smell of takeout food. When the others left, Ethan lingered. "You did it," he said softly. "They are calling it the most human proposal this company has ever submitted." Maya laughed. "Then you should take the credit. You signed it." "I only signed it," he replied. "You gave it a heart." For a moment, they stood close enough to feel the quiet between them. Then the phone on his desk buzzed, shattering the stillness. He turned away to answer, his tone shifting into the formal rhythm of business. Maya gathered her things and left quietly, not trusting her voice. That night, at home, she opened her sketchbook and began to draw again this time, a pair of hands holding a city skyline made of light. She did not know why, but it felt like a portrait of them both. Days turned into weeks. The project grew, and so did the tension neither of them addressed. They were partners in purpose, but strangers when it came to feelings. Still, there were moments a shared smile in the elevator, a touch when they reached for the same file that made her heart forget the boundaries between gratitude and something deeper. One rainy afternoon, Ethan found her in the foundation's art room, alone, cleaning brushes. "You never stop," he said quietly. "Art does not wait," she replied, smiling. He stepped closer. "You are doing more than art. You are changing lives here." Maya looked up at him. "You gave me the chance to." He hesitated, then said, "When I first saw you, I thought you were a mistake, a stranger who walked into the wrong story. And now?" she asked softly. "Now I am beginning to think you were the part of it I was missing." For a heartbeat, the world went silent, except for the rain against the windows. Then he stepped back, almost abruptly, his composure returning. "Good night, Maya." When he left, she exhaled slowly, her chest tight with feelings she could not name. She stared at the city outside, the same city that had once made her feel small, and realized how much had changed. She was building something that mattered. And somewhere inside that progress was a man who saw her not as a mistake, but as a beginning. As she closed her sketchbook, a faint smile crossed her lips. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain. Fate had a strange sense of timing, and perhaps, this time, it was on her side. If this fake marriage universe pulls you in, subscribe now so you never miss the next chapter. Autumn came softly to New York, painting the city in muted gold. The Ward Foundation prepared for its biggest event of the year, a charity gala to celebrate the success of their art program. For Maya Collins, it was a milestone, the proof that all her sleepless nights and careful sketches had led somewhere real. But success did not erase nerves. On the morning of the gala, she stood in front of her closet, staring at the only dress she owned that could pass as formal. It was pale gray, the same color as the sky before rain. She had hemmed it herself, sewing in tiny stitches after work. When she arrived at the venue, the ballroom glowed beneath 1,000 hanging lights. People in tailored suits and glittering gowns moved like waves, champagne glasses catching reflections. Maya felt small again, the same feeling she had the night she walked into the wrong table. "Breathe," she whispered to herself. Across the room, Ethan Ward watched her from a distance. For weeks, he had told himself to keep things professional, to stay within the lines he had drawn long before she entered his world. But tonight, something shifted. She did not look like a stranger in borrowed light. She belonged. He approached as the orchestra tuned its next song. "You look different," he said quietly. Maya smiled. "Better or worse?" "Like yourself," he answered. They talked for a while, easy and unguarded, until a voice interrupted them. A woman in an elegant black dress stepped forward. Vanessa, Ethan's former business partner and, for a brief time, fiancé from another life. Her smile was polite, sharp at the edges. "Ethan," she said smoothly, "you always find the most interesting company." Maya extended her hand, trying to hide her discomfort. "Maya Collins. I work with the foundation." "Ah, the artist," Vanessa said. "I read the proposal you wrote. Quite emotional." "It was meant to be," Maya replied softly. "Art should feel like something." Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Ethan. "She has spirit. I can see why you keep her close." Then, with a smirk, she turned away. The music swelled, and for a moment Maya wanted to disappear into the crowd. Ethan caught her hesitation. "Do not let her get to you," he said gently. "I am fine," she lied, but her voice trembled. Later that night, when the auction began, one of Maya's own paintings donated anonymously was displayed. It was the city skyline drawn in her signature blue tones, a symbol of hope and distance. The bidding started small but grew quickly. Ethan watched silently as a man raised the final card, $10,000. The crowd applauded. Maya stood frozen, eyes wide. When she turned toward Ethan, he simply smiled. Your art speaks louder than you think. After the event, as guests filtered out, she stepped onto the terrace for air. The city below shimmered like a living painting. She wrapped her arms around herself against the chill. Ethan joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. You disappeared, he said. I needed quiet, she replied. Too many perfect people in one room. He handed her a cup. Then let us be imperfect together for a few minutes. She laughed softly, the sound warming the night. They stood side by side, looking over the skyline. You know, she said, I used to think success was about being seen. Now I think it is about being understood. He glanced at her. Then I hope you know that you are. Their eyes met, the city reflecting in both. The silence that followed felt fragile, almost sacred. But before either of them could speak, his phone vibrated with an urgent call from the company board. He hesitated, apology in his eyes. Go, Maya said quietly. Duty calls. He nodded, leaving the untouched cup beside her. When the door closed behind him, she stared at the city again, whispering, Duty always does. Inside the ballroom, rumors had already begun about the CEO and the artist who had stolen his attention. Maya did not hear them yet, but the night had shifted. Something was changing, and neither of them could stop it. The wind rose, carrying the faint echo of music and promises not yet spoken. By the next morning, the gala had become the headline of every business page. The reclusive CEO's mysterious companion. Ethan Ward's new muse. The words hit Maya Collins like a slap. She stood frozen behind the counter at the diner, her phone lighting up with messages from co-workers, reporters, even old friends she had not spoken to in years. None of them cared about her art. They only wanted gossip. When she arrived at the Ward Foundation later that day, the air felt different. Conversations stopped as she walked by. A few staff members avoided her eyes, others whispered as if she were invisible. Inside his office, Ethan Ward was already waiting, the newspaper spread across his desk. His jaw was tight, eyes unreadable. I am sorry, she said before he could speak. I did not mean for this to happen. He shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for. You did nothing wrong. Then why does everyone look at me like I did? Because they need a story, he said quietly. And it is easier to turn a woman into a headline than to admit the truth. She stared at him, heart pounding. And what is the truth? He hesitated, then looked away. That I care about you more than I should. The silence that followed felt heavier than any rumor. Maya swallowed hard. You do not have to protect me. If this hurts your company, I can resign. No, he said sharply. You are not running away from what we built. It is not just work anymore, Ethan. People think I am here because of you, not because of what I can do. That is not what I think, but it is what they will always think. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Maybe this world of yours and mine were never meant to fit. Maya, I need time, she said softly, before everything we have turns into something ugly. She turned and walked out before he could answer. That evening, the rain returned, washing the city in streaks of silver light. From his office window, Ethan watched her figure disappear under an umbrella, each step taking her farther from him. Inside her apartment, Maya pulled the curtains closed and sat on the floor, her sketchbook open but blank. For the first time since she met him, she could not draw. The city outside roared with life, yet both of them felt the same silence, the kind that follows when something precious begins to crack. Days turned into weeks, and silence settled like dust between them. Maya Collins did not return to the foundation. She spent her mornings at the diner again, her nights sketching half-finished drawings that never seemed to come alive. The headlines had faded, but the sting of them lingered. Across the city, Ethan Ward faced his own storm. The board questioned his judgment. Investors whispered about distraction, and his assistant hinted that removing Maya's project might restore confidence. He refused. The foundation stands, he said firmly. It is not up for discussion. But the pressure grew. When he walked into meetings, People measured his silence more than his words. When he passed by the art displays she had designed, he felt the ache of her absence like a missing heartbeat. One evening, as he reviewed documents in his office, a knock broke the quiet. It was Clara, holding an envelope. "Someone delivered this for you. No name, just your address." Inside was a small sketch pencil on textured paper. It showed the city skyline at dawn, the sun just breaking through the fog. At the bottom corner, 2 words, "Keep building." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew that handwriting. The next day, without telling anyone, he went to the community center where her foundation workshops had first started. Children's paintings covered the walls. Volunteers moved between easels. And there she was, Maya, wearing paint-splattered jeans, guiding a little boy's hand as he traced colors across a canvas. He watched her for a moment, unseen, his throat tightening. Then she looked up and froze. "Ethan, I was told you might be here," he said quietly. "Your message reached me." Maya set down the brush. "I did not think you would come. I could not stay away," he admitted. "You built something beautiful here. I almost ruined it." She shook her head. "You did not ruin it. You gave it life. I just needed to remember why I started." They stood among the soft chatter of children and the smell of paint. He reached into his coat and handed her a folder. "The board approved continued funding. Under one condition, you stay in charge." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, that will cause more rumors." "Then let them talk," he said. "They have talked before. We will outlast the noise." For a long moment, neither moved. The walls glowed with color and laughter, and the weight between them finally eased. "You once told me I reminded you what was real," she said quietly. He smiled. "You still do." Outside, the late afternoon light spilled across the street, soft and gold. For the first time in months, Maya felt the world tilt toward hope again. And deep down, both of them knew this was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning of finding their way back. Winter returned quietly, wrapping the city in a pale light that shimmered across the Hudson. Inside the community center, laughter echoed as children prepared for the end-of-year art showcase. Paint-stained tables were lined with sketches, colors, and tiny clay models. Maya Collins moved between them, fixing frames and tying ribbons, her heart full in a way she had not felt in years. The door opened behind her. She turned, expecting a volunteer, and froze. Ethan Ward stood there, wearing a charcoal coat dusted with snow. His eyes found hers the way they always had, steady and sure. "You are early," she said, smiling softly. "I did not want to miss a single minute," he replied. The event began soon after. Parents filled the room, applauding every child who stepped up to show their work. When it ended, Ethan took the stage, the microphone trembling slightly in his hand. "The Ward Foundation started with a simple idea," he said, "to prove that art could change lives. But it has changed mine the most because of the person who built its heart." Maya felt her throat tighten. He turned toward her. "Maya Collins, I once offered you a chance to build something. I never imagined you would build me into a better man." He reached into his pocket and held up a small silver pen, the same one she had signed her first foundation proposal with months ago. This time, no contracts. Just a question. The room fell silent. Ethan stepped off the stage, stopping in front of her. "Will you marry me?" Tears blurred her vision. The silver pen gleamed between them, a reminder of every step they had taken from mistake to meaning. She took his hand. "You already know my answer." Applause filled the room, but for a moment, it all faded. The noise, the people, the world outside. There was only them. Later that night, as they stood on the snowy sidewalk outside the center, he wrapped his coat around her shoulders. The city lights reflected in her eyes, the same way they had the first night they met. "I never thought I would find love in a mistake," she whispered. He smiled. "Then maybe fate knew exactly what it was doing." She laughed softly and leaned into him, their hands intertwined as snow began to fall harder, each flake glowing against the streetlights. From across the street, the sign for the Ward Foundation glowed through the glass. "Art changes everything." For them, it already had. If you want more Untold Billionaire love, subscribe and choose your next chapter on screen.